Perfect.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wyoming Bahamas Cat Island Conservation Institute AI Green Lab, brought to you today by the Bahamas UNESCO National Commission. We are so grateful to have all our participants in the Zoom land with us today, and for those who are tuning into the broadcast and recording. Thank you for checking this conversation out and being part of the AI Green Lab. My name is Nikita Shiel-Roll. I am one of the co-creators for this Green Lab, and I am also the founder and CEO of Wyoming Bahamas and the Cat Island Conservation Institute. And what we focus on really is about how do we create opportunities to connect people in meaningful ways that help to drive the co-creation of knowledge, not just for the sake of creating knowledge, but knowledge to inspire the greater good for social transformation. And this is what this conversation is all about. I'm so excited to welcome our visiting scholar at the Cat Island Conservation Institute, Abi Goshu, who is joining us all the way from Ethiopia. And he is going to be facilitating us through these next 4 sessions as we dive deep into AI. And so, without further ado, what I would like us to do, that rhymed, is for us to just go around our circle, introduce yourself. Like I said, my name is Nikita Shiel-Roll. Let us know where you're joining us from. Today, actually, I am joining us from the island community of Lamu in Kenya. It is a Swahili community and it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's really cool to be anchored into a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the oldest Swahili community in Africa, bringing this AI Green Lab to the world and, of course, to our beautiful community in the Bahamas. So, and I'm here because I want to learn about AI and just how I can use it better as a tool and also what I don't know. So, with that, I will tap Abby and you can introduce yourself and then we can just flow around the circle.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikita, for that lovely welcome. And yeah, nice to be close to the ocean as well, right? It's a coastal city in Lamu, so I can also see the heritage design behind, kind of gives you that Lamu vibe, Swahili. So yeah, nice. So I'm not also very far from where Kenya is. We're just neighboring countries. My name is Abi, everyone. Nice to be here, joining you on our AI Green Lab first session, co-hosted by the Young Marine Explorers and Cat Island Conservation Institute in collaboration with UNESCO National Commission of Bahamas. So yeah, my name is Abi Shimelis. I'm joining you from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, which is the capital city of Ethiopia and on the eastern part of Africa. And I am a project communication lead at an institution that specializes in digital ID, digital trade, and digital economy at the Economic Commission for Africa at the UN. It's a regional economic commission for the UN. But also, most importantly, on a personal level, I am a self-proclaimed community builder, a social innovator, very much interested in bringing communities together to talk about social innovation. I'm very much into tech governance and also how it relates to issues of our environment, sustainability, climate action, and basically how we can use technology for better good, for our common good, and how we can fasten up some of the um, amazing, works that, or the urgently needed action that we need as it relates to climate action and sustainability. So we'll get more into that more, but overall, yeah, I'm happy to be here, joining you as a visiting scholar and also my friend Dagam. Very much excited to hear from him as well. So yeah, I'm happy to, I'm excited to what we're gonna learn, also share. Um, most of these topics about AI, smart development are very much new. We are these are the frontier of human endeavor and human knowledge as we expand, grow, and learn. So there's no expertise here. Everyone is an expert. We're here trying to share and just like co-create, learn together. So I'm happy to also excited to learn more about AI from you guys as well. So let me hear from Dagam as well. I'll hand it over to him. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's actually like late midnight here in Ethiopia. My name is Dagmawi Bedilu. It's actually indeed a pleasure to actually be here with you, my Bahamian brothers and sisters, and also like my Ethiopian fellows. I'm born and raised in Ethiopia. By profession, I'm an electrical engineer specializing in software engineering. Currently, I'm a tech and innovation consultant. I also have I co-founded a company called Efuye Gela, which is a startup aggregator specializing in tech entrepreneurship, and also sharing what Abi said. I'm also a very fanatic community builder. I especially run gaming communities in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, and I'm also like a chair for the Ethiopian Games Association. So it's always a pleasure to talk about technology and the ins and outs, the goods and bads about technology and what the future might hold and how we can actually leverage technology to make our lives better. And it's my pleasure to be here and learn from you as I share my experience with you as well. So thank you for inviting me, Nikita and Avi, and it's going to be a super duper awesome session from my spidey senses.
Awesome. Yeah. Nice. So yeah, thank you, Dagam, for that. I actually first met Dagam through a community called what we have here in Ethiopia called the Toastmasters community, where just people come together to improve their public speaking skills. And it's kind of like those after work communities where we get it's not just only Toastmasters Club, it's also a space for people to share their ideas, thoughts, abstract ideas, and kind of it sometimes could be a monologue, right? But also you get to meet very interesting professions like Dagam, who I for the first time hearing it was my first time hearing what gamers do, like gamification, what that is about, using games to drive innovation and basically solve big problems. So that was the very first time for me hearing what the gaming society do. But also, I think that evolved into also, this is me now introducing our guest speaker for today. Before also, of course, I'm going to explain what the whole purpose of the AI Green Lab is about, what we intend to do in the next 4 weeks, starting today's first session, and also hear from all of you as well as we get to introduce each other. But so yeah, we'll talk more about the gaming society, Dagam. I'm happy to hear how that applies to social, innovation and all that. So yeah, happy to hear. Thank you for joining us as well, Dagam. So happy to hear from others as well. A round of introductions.
Hi, my name is
Travis,
Travis.
maybe? Oh, okay, Travis. Awesome.
Just
All
hopped
right.
in. Yeah, I'm a developer. I work in web and e-commerce. So AI has always been the craze over this last year and a half. So I'm just interested to learn more on how I could help in this space in terms of development, AI, and those tools and resources around there as well too. So thank you to Nikita for the invite.
I'm Dagmawi Morley. I work at the Area Institute for Marine Science. So I work in conservation of coral reef, but I was previously working in agriculture, especially aquaculture, which I still have a passion for. So I really want to see how I can incorporate AI in both of those areas.
Hi, everyone. I'm Renique Force. I'm a sustainability consultant. I specialize in establishing symmetry between sustainable development and operations management. Also, the co-founder of a Certified Conc, which is basically a conservation sustainability education awareness platform. I really just got into AI. I love using the things on Bing and Google just to see exactly how AI could help and contribute to education. So I'm really interested in this platform. Thank you so much, Nikita, for the invite.
Good night. I'm Glenys McKinsey. I'm in the UK right now, so it is coming close to midnight for me. Currently, I am a project coordinator with the National Energy Registry, so National Emissions, Registry, and also working on some things with climate change and AI right now.
Brandon dropped a message in the WhatsApp in the chat box saying that he's driving. So Brandon is from the University of the Bahamas and is an ocean climate observation modeling expert and is coordinating the Small Island Sustainability Program. I hope I did you justice there, Brandon. So we're so happy to have you with us. And then Ravina.
Hi, good evening, everyone, or good morning, wherever you are. My name is Ravinia Hanner. I'm with the Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute, or BAMSI. It's raining cats and dogs here and thunder and lightning, so my connection might go in and out. But I'm just interested in learning more and being able to integrate the technology with what we currently do at BAMSI. And so I look forward to some great sessions. Thank you.
All right. Is that all, Nikita? Is that almost everyone? Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you all. It's a pleasure getting to know you as well and the amazing work you guys are involved in. So I'm excited. This is really cool. So yeah, to kind of start off, as you know, this is the AI Green Lab from the title you might have read. So I'll just kind of give you an overview how the name actually came about and what we're trying to achieve in the next 4 weeks, 4 sessions. So right now we are going through basically as a global community. I think it would be nice to share my presentation to kind of just Nikita, can you enable me to share my screen? Kind of walk you through some of the challenges we're trying to solve as young leaders, as community builders, and social innovators. And before we even talk about how AI applies in our lives, how we understand it at a very fundamental level, right? So it would be good to kind of just share with you from where we're coming. Can you see my screen? Yeah.
Perfect. You are in
All right.
presenter mode. You're not in, yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Okay, awesome. So that's me. I've already told you my name, Abi. That's my name also in native Amharic, uh, which is English is my second language. We come from, so basically I'm a sustainability and tech governance analyst. I have very much I'm very much into the nexus of green development and how tech applies in that. So currently working as a project communications lead at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. But yeah, but most importantly, this is where I'm at right now, at the eastern corner of the continent, the African continent. I've heard a very, interesting contrast between the Bahamas and Ethiopia, which has been at the very, beautiful contrast learning that we've been having with, YME, Nikita's team, and the amazing work they've been doing in the Cat Island Conservation Institute and all that. So we come from a very mountainous country, up in the mountains. It's also nicknamed as the Abyssinian Highlands, mostly because almost 70% of the African continent's Table Mountains are situated in this eastern part of the continent. So right now I'm seated at around 2,300 meters above sea level. Very various ranges of climate, people. We're the second largest population in the African continent next to Nigeria with 120 million people. And right now in Addis, we're about 4 million. So this is some of the contrast. Like I've heard Bahamas, the highest point in the Bahamas is 60 meters. Is that right, Nikita? Yeah, so we have different ranges of terrains. And then that's on the bottom, that's Addis Ababa, the capital. And where you have, the financial districts, this is the Mescal Square, I mean the Friendship Park, where people come together, and it's basically the cityscape. So you have different, depending on which part of Ethiopia you're talking about. So you'll have, that's just a bit of, so our closest, we're a landlocked country. We, yes, those are old cars. That's Old Town Piazza. That's in Addis. And also, we're a landlocked country. We don't have the ocean. That's one of the things we envy about the Caribbean. And but we do have lakes and some few lake islands here and there where you have different monasteries and all that. This is Lake Tana, one of the largest lakes in Ethiopia. So that's a bit of a sense of water we have from. So these are some probably from familiar people you might know, maybe in the Caribbean. You probably have heard of Rastafari. Rastafari is the name of Haile Selassie, Emperor Haile Selassie, who ruled during the early 1900s up until the mid 1900s. So, and also different other African leaders, Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, Tanzania, and all those leaders. So this is post-independent Africa, probably around that time where most African countries regained their independence from colonial powers. And this were, you're seeing most of the time that the leaders were at that time. So yeah, now that's a bit about Ethiopia and where we're coming at. So I think let's start off so we're still talking about AI green, right? So AI green, there's AI and also the green part. So what do we mean by green? We're talking, okay, the first thing that comes to my mind is our environment, our immediate environment, our ecosystem. So right now humanity is confronted with, the challenge, the assignment, a big assignment of providing decent living conditions for 9.7 billion people estimated by 2050, while staying safe within ecological limits. So this kind of, for me, sums up the idea of the challenge that this generation, this people in this Zoom call, and all of the amazing people doing amazing work in AI, climate science, and all that, we're kind of tasked with this very basic thing, providing decent living conditions for all of these people, and at the same time doing it within ecological limits, because at the end of the day we're still in this planet. So that's the first thing, the 3 Ps: planet, people, and then peace, basically trying to live in a decent living. So the 3 Ps: planet, people, and peace. So the peace element is providing decent living conditions for all. But as you know, we're in a climate emergency, a lot of climate extremities happening here and there. And these are the challenges, like basically we're trying to understand. So basically Ethiopia is no different, we have some similarities with the Bahamian community in terms that we are very vulnerable to climate change due to also population pressure and also the the ways how we have been defining our relationship with our environment for a long time. We're a very agrarian community. We don't have fish, but we might have good maize, good corn, if our indigenous food, which is like a flatbread, and most of this are agrarian-based diet like we have. So it's we've been so these are different. We're focusing on trying to cope up with climate extremities through adaptation as main priority. But yeah, that's so there's a lot of exciting things happening at the continental level. We have different charters happening. One of the most notable is the African Youth Charter, where we're trying to basically define how we want to get together, because by 2040, if I'm not mistaken on my statistics, Africa will be the second largest population. Almost half of the world will be Africans, basically. So we're talking about 50% of the global population by 2040. So that needs to be we need to be very intentional on how we mobilize and communicate with each other. So that's one of the challenges we have about people need jobs. People have innovative ideas. You need to also mobilize that. And it's a very vibrant community. So we have this very continental vision called Agenda 2063, in which we define a more integrated, prosperous, and a very peaceful Africa that we're trying to build. So that's basically the vision we have as young African youth. So the beauty of that is the African diaspora, the Caribbean is also the sixth region. The African Union has also identified the Caribbean community and the Caribbean people as the sixth region of the continent. So that's basically how my work with Nikita and I kind of evolved, over the last, I would say, since we met through UNESCO, and it was listening to your work you've been doing in marine conservation, teaching people how to dive, swim, and for Bahamians to have a very healthy relationship with their oceans. So that's amazing. So this has been our Afro-Caribbean kind of learning and sharing experience we've been having this past few years since we start to understand about each other's work. So it's about movement building. As you can see, everywhere around the world, people find ways to express themselves, to come together, solve problems. Some happen in extreme protests, some happen through riots, conflicts in different parts of the world, as we're seeing right now. We're having, different bad news coming from the Middle East and all that. So these are all manifestations of people's way of how they would see themselves living in this world, and how these different worldviews can often come into conflict. But also there's a potential to also build positive movements, positive peace. And so that's why I identify myself as a community builder, besides the whole techie, sustainability, and all that. It's all related. And at the core of it is bringing people together for action. So just quickly, just to come to the matter. So we have also challenges in media crisis, whether if it's beyond now stepping out of the ecological challenges. We're also part of a global community where we use tech, right? Right now we're in this Zoom room, miles apart, thousands of miles apart, we're still communicating. That's the beauty of technology, right? Just to begin with. It's very difficult to fly over to the Caribbean, but it's we're easily connected here having a conversation. But also at the same time, technology has its downside, which depending on how you use it, one of the challenges has been the media crisis, especially since the blowout, like the vast spread out use of social media and how we govern it. That has been a challenge, which AI has a lot to do now. So that's part of our conversation throughout some of the sessions as we go about. How do we moderate this space, basically? So technology has a lot to do in that. So I am also part of a community called the Action for Peace 2030 campaign, which is a decade-long action campaign for sustainable peace building. So we talk a lot about youth, peace, and security, and how youth can have meaningful voice in shaping peace policies, big governance issues, including tech and other relevant dimensions of human development. So at the bottom of it is finding a common ground. So for me, the beauty of this team, the Afro-Caribbean learning experience having is that we're building common ground on some of the things. Our lived realities might be different. Probably you might not have an idea of what the hell I'm talking about from the Ethiopian perspective, or I don't know, who's this guy from Africa, East Africa, sharing his story about climate action and what. But for me, at the end of the day, I do believe we're living in a common world, in a common space where technology, AI is part of that common field, that data. We're talking about how do we find novel funding mechanisms to also drive some of the actions we're trying to build. And one of the common areas is technology. So that's why we're having this conversation as well. Yeah. So we do a lot of art-based. Initially, the Action for Peace campaign evolved from different artist communities. These are our artist ambassadors coming together, performing different. We used to run festivals, different activities, dialogues, community dialogues, art-based works, heritage and nature preservation, basically having an understanding of self to drive collective action. So I'll be looking forward to learn our common heritage, our common history as well, as part of, beyond how tech can facilitate and fast track some of these learning experiences, right? So that's part of it. I'll come to this quote later on, but hey, this is my last slide before I dive into the outline of Dagam's presentation and, where we can start. This is a picture taken earlier this year in Kigali. Nikita was visiting for the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance meeting, PACJA in short. It's an African Youth Conference on Climate Justice, where you see different African youth in the climate space. And also, Nikita also representing the Caribbean community. I know there's a lot of activities you have related to Regional Conference of Youth, the ARCOI, bringing people on your side, like the Caribbean, almost 30 plus countries, right? You're bringing from different parts of the Caribbean to discuss how you address some of the challenges I've just been mentioning about sustainability and climate action. So this is a great start, and hopefully we'll have more African Caribbean exchange. So yeah, this is thank you for that, and then let me just exit from my slide, stop sharing, and so yeah, where do we start? So having kind of laid that basic foundation, the key takeaway I want to focus forward is one, we're having two major evolutions in human development right now. Like we're at the frontier of two very exciting. I'm very particular on the word exciting. It's exciting because it's unfolding in a very in an opportunity, in a way that it provides an opportunity for all of us to be involved and get engaged and leapfrog quickly. One is the sustainability. We're trying to drive climate action and live in a healthier planet. That's one. And the second is where we are in a tech revolution, in a simple word, meaning you have artificial intelligence blowing out. Yes, there are some people that say this has been in the background for many years. Maybe some of us, just like me, who are just newbies in its application form, trying to better understand what data is, what is it, all of these big jargons, big data, machine learning, um, artificial intelligence, robotics, all of these things. We're really going into a tech revolution. So how do we leverage on this opportunity? That's one of the basic questions we want to explore. Some of you during your application, I've seen some of the ways that you've been responding to how you want to apply AI in your related work of field. We're gonna dive into those as well. So we're gonna be hearing from you guys as well and expand further on those discussions. But yeah, before I hand over to Dagam, you can share with us what today you have in store for us. And then I don't know if yeah, we can start off with a question and answer maybe before going into Dagam's presentation. If there's anything unclear in between, or yeah, let's start with that stuff. Back to you, Madam Moderator, Nikita.
Thank you so much. That was a really great overview of everything, both perspective of where you and Dagam are coming from in Ethiopia, but then also I think creating an overview of how AI really does show up in all these different spaces, from media to I think it was Gimel who mentioned even wanting to see how AI can help to address sort of our actions to coral or environmental conservation. So the application of AI is so wide. And so I think it's going to be really interesting for us to sort of dive deeper into those possibilities, but then also getting a better understanding of where we are, what's possible, and then also how we can use AI for good. And I did actually encourage my students. I'm teaching this semester at BAMSI, and I encourage my students actually to use AI and ChatGPT, but not in a irresponsible, do my homework kind of way, but I feel like if you use it as a tool to say, listen, I'm looking for, like, provide me with a list of publications on this topic, I feel like that's a really great way for you to use, or at least as I'm starting to learn how I can use, ChatGPT, that's something that I feel like is a tool to me, but then is not plagiarism. And so I'm looking forward to diving into this conversation of sort of where this gray area is and how we work through it. So yeah, back to you. You're muted.
Thank you. That's awesome. All right. That's a very important question. We're going to talk a lot about ChatGPT. That's the common tag name for AI recently, because it's all over the place. And we're seeing huge potentials of it solving, like, we see exciting capabilities that ChatGPT is doing. So yeah, we're going to talk about that as well in some of our sessions. AI for good, AI for bad. So there's always a contrast, right? There's always that balance. There's always a good way to use it. There's a bad way to use it as well. So there's even talks about, killer bots, flying bots, and all of those things in the military applications, biochemical applications, bioengineering, media, algorithm governance, data governance. There's a lot of applications, nanotechnology, cybersecurity. These are all related to how we're interacting as human beings with these technologies. But let's start with the basics, right? Like ChatGPT, right? So we'll come to that, Dagam. I know you have a lot to share us with that on. But before that, let me walk you through the quick schedule outline. We have, but is that okay to do it now, Nikita, or we just go towards Dagam's
I think we should
presentation?
let's let Dagam dive in,
Okay,
and
okay.
then we can go over the next schedule towards the end.
Awesome. Thank you. So Dagam, back to you.
Okay. I hope everyone listen. You guys can hear me, right? So, actually, like, already, it seems like the the kind of forms are already out, and like we have already started discussion in a way. Like Nikita mentioned, like okay, about like AI and ChatGPT and plagiarism and how to use it or how to not use it. And so these conversations are actually like pretty much out there. But like since we don't know who would hear and how much each of the individuals know about AI or how we're using it, like in that case, maybe like we can start by kind of a pre-assessment, like to see like where are we when it comes to AI. So and like honestly speaking, usually when I run sessions, like I, it would be very much interesting if we keep it on the informal level, because a lot of lessons will be learned on an informal level, and like usually using very technical terms, terminologies, like we lose a lot of people in those very elitistic kind of words. So we try to bring it as rudimentary as possible so that everyone can be on the same basis, and everyone can actually reflect on it, whether you are a tech savvy or not, whether you've used computers or not. And we want to like I think if I'm not mistaken, there are going to be 2 sessions on AI. So the first one we'll just try to understand that the basics and the foundations of it. So for those of you which if you think it's going to be very below your understanding, maybe you can also like become a very proactive participant, like so that like you can see your perspective in it as well, so that we don't leave anyone behind and we don't talk like technically and have people left out of the conversation. So I'll try to like maybe like we're going to have a conversation. Maybe I will ask a couple of questions, and also like whenever you have a couple of questions, or even if you have something to say, or if you want to share something, please jump in, turn off your microphones, jump in, and like start talking, and like that. Let's make it as if we're actually sitting over a coffee and like having a conversation. And usually like learning happens through this process, which is very interesting, because we're going to talk about machines learning. So maybe let me start off with a very simple question. Like, so what was your first encounter, or like your recent encounter with AI? Like, if you had any. So whenever we say AI, like we're talking about artificial intelligence, you might say I've never encountered an artificial intelligence, or like you might say, oh, on a daily basis I use it almost every time. So let's just see how many of us are aware of like our surrounding when it comes to self-aware AIs or like artificial intelligence lurking on our PCs or like on our surroundings. So maybe like whoever is willing to share, please feel free to kind of break the ice and start. Perfect. Thank you. Rani, like, did he say something, or like?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I would like to share. So with AI, I'm not sure if I've been using it my entire life or not. I have no idea where it could be within any of the systems that I've used. But most recently, I listened to a podcast that stated to start getting involved with AI. And, you know, coming from a Caribbean state, it is kind of, the perception is, you know, technology, the advancements of it, you want to be careful of it. And I realized before that podcast that I kind of had that same kind of mindset, like, who is this thing that I'm asking these questions to? Because sometimes when you don't know, you are kind of ignorant to what the possibilities are. So most recently, I bite the bullet, or I took a leap, and I said, well, let me try and use Chat GPT. I just got into it maybe about a month ago, and I was like, oh my goodness, this thing is like amazing. And then I even asked, I started to research, how do they know these things? And then something like dawned on me as well. Like sometimes we used to ask Google certain questions and would have to read through like articles upon articles to get certain types of answers. And then you just type in a certain question to ChatGPT, and they're like, they're giving you the things that you're looking for. Maybe not everything is accurate, and of course you still have to do your research, but that was an eye-opening experience for me. And then it also opened my eyes to how we as a culture sometimes could just throw something away without understanding exactly what it is, and then we lose out on different opportunities.
Maybe Randy, like a follow-up questions, because like you already mentioned it, maybe I don't know. I would like to hear your reflections on the topic. So you say like in the past we used to use Google like to search for things, right? Now like we have ChatGPT. What is the difference that you have found like when using ChatGPT and like Google? Like, did you find a significant difference that you have noticed, like that you'll be more like willing to share?
Yeah, so of course, with like doing research papers and things like that, you would ask for, let's go with brand development, maybe. You would ask for ways to Google how you could develop your brand. And then you get all of these different responses from different persons who, of course, created websites and put it out there, newsletters, everything like that. And you're sifting through information for hours upon hours. And then you ask ChatGPT one question and they give you like 10 points off the bat. And I just feel like that's so amazing because it's not that I couldn't like find those things through those articles, but it was just so much easier for me, and it honestly relieved a lot of mental stress and anxiety for me as well, to just be able to say, okay, you know what, this makes sense when I see what ChatGPT has produced. And if I ever had a question about anything, then I'll just go ahead and continue to research it.
So like what you're saying, it seems like what ChatGPT does better than Google is like it not only like search through those places where the information is stored at, but it also like aggregates them, like summarizes them, and kind of produces to you. Like so, it kind of adds a layer of assistance or like support compared to what in the past Google used to do, right? That's like what you're saying, right?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. It just makes it a whole lot easier.
Nice. Perfect. Any other reflections? Like, when was the last time you used an AI, or like if you have ever used an AI, or like if you're always using it, when was the first encounter with an AI, if you think you have encountered?
My first encounter with AI, but I know recently I've been using it a lot more to write emails. So for if you have Grammarly on your computer, they have a Grammarly extension. So you can automatically respond to emails that way just by writing the prompt or just saying reply to this particular email. And it's been really handy. Like, it does make mistakes, so you still have to look over it, but you can tell them to improve it or make it longer or shorter. Like, they have a lot of settings that you can play around with. And it has been helping me with writing emails just by myself, just through constantly looking at all the other options that I can have with responding to people.
And Gmail, maybe, I don't know, like a follow-up question to you as well. Like you said, it also makes mistakes. Like, how do you think like it makes mistakes? Like how do you think it works in a way? Like,
well, it'll work by replying directly to the person who sent the email sometimes, but if they ask you a particular question, the AI might not understand it fully, understand the question. So you have to go in and find out write in different prompts just to properly for the AI to understand what to write back.
okay, that's actually like, that's a decent understanding. So you said understanding. So now it's funny, like we have come to this timeline where like in human civilization where we're talking about machines and like their understanding of things. Like it's actually a very fascinating phenomena, because like not only like only 20, 30 years ago we were talking about machines as calculators and like computers, right? Like that would do operations. Like we never questioned if they understood something or not. Like we never even bothered if they understood something or not. But now we're actually like having a conversation, like in our day-to-day conversations, we kind of refer to these computers as if, oh, they also have like a sense of understanding. Okay, they might misunderstand us. Like we usually use these terminologies with our partners or friends or family, or but now we also use it with machine. So like that's also like a very interesting way of looking at it. And one more reflections on the topic. Your encounters with AI, like literally, like in the past.
I'll say I've used it most recently to help a friend write a letter of recommendation. And I think what it is for me is that sometimes it's like writing letters, it can help me find language that is language is so important. And sometimes when you don't have the right words, you struggle with articulating yourself, getting your message across. There can be miscommunication. And so I found that using sort of Chat GPT specifically for drafting, as Jamal said, letters helps to find language and also kind of relieve sometimes the anxiety or emotions associated with some of the busy work or responses that need to be done.
That's nice. Like one thing you've mentioned, and in the AI world, that's very much talked upon and like researched upon as language. And like as a matter of fact, if you look at language and humanities as a species, I think Yuval Harari kind of pointed out in the Homo Deus series. He said like if language was not there, like we would not be that much different from the other species that we actually occupy the world with. And what actually distinctly differentiated us from the other animals like we're living with is that the fact that we can actually give sounds to items and we can come to a common consensus of what we're talking about. Like I would say a banana, and like everyone would understand what a banana is. And we can actually create on a daily basis. Whereas if you go to the animal kingdom, yes, there might be a sense like a form of language, but it's what we call pre-coded or predetermined. Like dogs, they would bark, but the bark is the same. Like if there's 10 types of the barks, like it would mean the same. Like we haven't seen our dogs evolve and actually coming up with sophisticated kind of barkings or like kind of like creating very storylines with barkings. It never happened. Like barking has always been the same 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 100 years ago, and now. But humanity, we're always working with what we communicate, and we're adding more abstractions, and that's what somehow kind of relates to what we call intelligence, which I would like to dive into. Maybe another pointers like are you familiar with movies that depicted kind of AI worlds, like where it could be a good AI or bad AI? Like, does a movie come to your mind that you kind of saw the potential of an AI or what it could do into the world, what it's doing to the world? Wakanda, okay. Uh, hmm. Maybe like Nikita, would you mind like to kind of say more about it? Oh, iRobot. Okay. Maybe we
Well, I
start
guess
with
I heard someone refer the other day to the voice, like that runs the computer as like
yeah.
the AI, like the computer voice, which is I feel like one way that I've seen AI represented in film.
Nice. And Abby?
There was this so the first that came to my mind was iRobot, simply because you see bots acting as human or organizing as an army, like coming together and syncing, like reading with each other's minds. That's one. That's pretty straightforward. But also, I've come to realize that what was that Stephen Hawking movie where he was converting text to speech? Kind of, does that qualify as an artificial intelligence, or that's a
Which one?
very
Which one? Which movie? Oh, like the
where
the
Actually, it's just Stephen Hawking in general. Like any documentaries, like I've just watched. Yeah.
Speech to text, like these are the things we can. They are actually part of like. So AI is a very big bubble, and inside of it is like text to speech, speech to text. These are actually by far very much under the natural language processing realm, and they actually are part and parcel of the AI world.
There's an interesting question. There's a lot of AI applications I can mention, but let's give more chance to like. There's someone was asking, does The Matrix count as an AI movie?
Exactly. That's also like that's by far one of my favorite movies I've ever seen, and actually, The Matrix itself is an AI, and actually, like if you've seen what was the name, the agents, like special agent Smith, these are actually specific types of softwares, also known as AIs, that are actually working in this bigger realm called the Matrix. That's actually a very interesting observation. Terminator, by far, I think the most renowned and well versed with when it comes to AI is Terminator. Like I think most of us would remember the movie Terminator. For those of you who don't know it, it's about like a robot, also an AI that is sent back through time to kind of kill a specific kind of individual that started the resistance against the machines. So I first, for example, came to the whole AI world through this very legendary movie made by Steven Spielberg. What's the Avatar guy? It's right.
Christopher Nolan or
not Christopher Nolan, but
sorry.
Okay, that guy who made Terminator. Yeah, so it seems like more or less everyone has a couple like somehow an understanding of what an AI is, like whether we've seen it on a movie, or we have actually used it. Like there are, as we can see, like proactive users. And just to give you a general understanding of it, we're going to dive deeper into it. When Nikita, like most of you guys, what you mentioned, there's this specific, we call it generative AIs. There's this AIs work with language and generating texts and like scripts and articles and going through a huge language model. And they are actually very trendy right nowadays with, I don't know if you use Midjourney to kind of generate pictures and images from text, or ChatGPT, which is an open AI made by OpenAI, or Bard, like which is Google's AI, and also like Bing AI, which is like Microsoft's AI. So these are like very popularly used AIs that are being used. But the most interesting thing is, I don't know how many of you have an iPhone and use Siri, or have Alexa, like are you using Alexa, or if you're using YouTube and YouTube has recommendations, or if you're watching Netflix and also Netflix recommends a movie for you. And like if you are like on social media, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, you always find these elements where they say like, okay, a specific kind of content comes to you, right? And maybe like you might wonder like why, like from all the content out there, why does Facebook recommend this specific kind of content? And this is all the working of AIs, and AIs have been there like relatively for a longer time. Now we're seeing them like now has the time has come where they are started to become very much visible and accessible to us as well. So in the past, if you played games, inside the games, if there are a character like that are actually running, or if you're playing chess or checkers on your mobile, and if you're competing with the PC, or if you're playing with the computer is actually being played by a form of an AI. So they're prominent, they've been there for a while, and now their power has grown significantly, and that's why the conversation is now pretty much out there. So let me just start sharing my slide. I like let's let's dive deeper into it. Okay. And like the if I'm like the one Wakanda, like the especially the AI that Shuri, I think it's T'Challa's sister, like the use it's called, I think it's called Griot. It's also an AI. Like whenever like you have a machine talking to you, or if you are a fan of a Marvel, if you've seen Vision or what's the other robots? Like all of the robots also like harnessed by like with Iron Man. All of these are AIs as well. So they've been there for a while. They've been actually like humans need to replicate itself, and they have been there for a while. So let me start. Like let me take you through a quicker description of the basic foundation of what we mean by AI. Like we say, like we saw these movies already, like and we are familiar with them. The Terminator, like we say, like we talk about an AI that's a bad AI that's trying to wipe out the humanity. When it comes to iRobots, it's a very decent movie. It's about an AI who has emotions and who's prosecuted for killing a human being, even though in the code of the AI, it was actually written that they can't kill a human being. So it's a very interesting philosophical debate that's turned into a movie. And you might have seen any of these movies, like Blade Runner, like it's an old movie. Wall-E is a cartoon movie, like Ex Machina. These are like more of very dark AIs kind of presented to us. Her is about a guy who falls in love with an AI. Like it's a very weird representation of okay, the human to machine relationship. He actually falls in love with the chat AI that's always helps him into conversing and like helping him and understanding himself. The Matrix, of course, it's a very dark take of an AI, and RoboCop is very significant. I put it here as well, like because now we're talking about like whenever we talk about like for example when Nikita, when you're using ChatGPT to help you in your day-to-day, we call it this is a symbiotic relationship between machines and human beings, and that makes us kind of a cyborg in a way, which is half human, half machine kind of, and like we're actually venturing into those realms as well. So let me ask you another question. From these four points, which one do you think doesn't exist in the world of AI? So the first one is there is an AI robot that got a citizenship. Okay, like a country gave a citizenship to the specific AI. The second one is a robot with a muscular skeleton, like a human being. Like there is a machine that has like muscles like human beings and like sophisticated muscle skeleton system. There is also like there is an AI that can read people's emotions, and there is an AI that develops emotions over time. So like become more and more empathetic as time goes on. Which of these answers do you think is wrong?
I would go with D because I don't believe that AI
can develop emotions. Okay.
but I believe that they can mimic it.
Oh, okay. So they can mimic it, but they can't develop it. Okay. That's a very valid argument. Any other takes on it?
I agreed with D as well, but that was prime. I mean, I also agree that I don't believe AI can develop emotions over time, but I feel like an AI robot with citizenship is so radical that it probably is real.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Okay. Any like so everyone agrees on D, or like is there different?
Yeah, I think I'm more with the D as well.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so like it's like I like that we have a very somehow like AI adapted kind of audience, because like the answer is actually D. And the reason why is like still as human beings we have a hard time understanding what emotions are, and later on we're going to see how AI is actually developed, how it's created. and then we will understand it much better, much clearer that how an AI can develop an emotions over time. But other than that, like the top three are pretty much already. I think most of you already know Sophia. Ethiopians are somehow very much close to her because the software actually, well, part of the software that's being developed is being developed by a company based in Ethiopia. It's called Google Labs. They're actually part of the team that was developing the software. She's like a humanoid, like a robot. And Saudi Arabia Saudi Arabia is the nation that gave her citizenship, which is a fun fact. Kangaroo is like it's kangaroo. It's not kangaroo. It's kangaroo. It's a Japanese robot, and actually, like as you can see, it can do more push-ups than any human being ever created. Like it can do sit-ups. It can do any kind of sporting activities. And the third one is IBM Watson. This is like a machine that understands like the first AI, and now we have a lot of AIs, but like the first AI machine, the first AI that understands, that can read people's emotions and like faces, and that can understand if you are angry or happy or sad or mad, like it can predict it. And why actually I put the three together is like gives you a very interesting understanding of how an AI can be perceived. So in the first one, Sophia is more of a conversationalist AI. So it's like Alexa or like Siri. What makes her special is like her understanding of the human language. So whenever you talk to her, like she responds back in a very humanistic kind of way. When it comes to Kangaroo, what makes it interesting is like it's not a language AI per se, but it's kind of mimics how human beings move. So we are very sophisticated beings because, like, for example, if you've seen robots, how they walk, they kind of walk in a very bizarre way, right? And because, like, but in reality, how human beings walk, as we actually walk in a very adaptive way. Like, for example, when you're going down a stair, if the stairs are not equal level, like what would happen? You kind of stumble, right? Or if you assume there is a beginning stair, like, or if you miss a stair, you kind of fumble. And that's because when we walk, we don't walk like robots. We walk very intuitively with gravity, and we kind of throw our legs and then we put it on the ground. So we have a very sophisticated way of moving our muscles. And what the developers of Kangaroo were able to do is like to mimic this. Whereas IBM Watson, it's very interesting because it's not a conversationalist AI. It doesn't even have a body, as you can see. It's not a robot. But what it does is it has what you call computer vision, meaning it can see a video and say if you are bored or happy or sad. So as you can see, there are very various ways of understanding how AIs work. Now, whenever we talk about artificial intelligence, the very important word in that terminology is intelligence. So maybe we can have a conversation of like, assuming we all claim to be intelligent beings here in the meeting, what do you think is an intelligence? Then we stop sharing it for a while so that we can have this conversation. What is intelligence? Or how would you define intelligence in a way? Or you can actually go through as slow as, are we even intelligent first? Like, because like whenever we say artificial intelligence, it's like man-made, right? So if there is a man-made intelligence, okay, there must be another intelligence that's not man-made or pre-made, you know. So what do you think? What's your personal reflection on intelligence?
All right, well, I'm just going to admit I went to Google.
Okay, perfect.
With Dr. Google. And Dr. Google defines intelligence as the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills, and then the collection of information of military or political value. So that's from a military perspective. But acquire and apply knowledge and skills.
So there is knowledge and skill. So acquiring a knowledge skill, there is also like another thing you mentioned. Can you read it again? So you said memory, right?
The ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills, the collection of information.
Collection of information, and finally, the why is usually political or
military or
right?
political.
So there are three elements to it. So whenever we talk about intelligence, there are going to be three elements we're always going to focus on. And this is very crucial because whenever we talk about, like, that's why I like the whole like AI green lab, because there is artificial intelligence, when there is this like ecosystem, like what we call the green, like the green hour, within it lies the survival of humanity. Like, so there is actually the AI doesn't have a purpose in itself. Like it's a skill and knowledge, and it does something specific. But why do we do those things? That's where intelligence usually comes. And if you go to the most prominent intelligent beings, if you go to single cell animals, their intelligence is all about survival instinct, their survival instinct. And to survive, which is the why, which is a political notion, to survive, they accumulate information through time. So, for example, if a single cell animal goes to a specific space and is somehow in danger, now it memorizes it so that next time it doesn't go there. So there is the why. Why do you want to do it? Which is the survival instinct, or like the need to survive. Then, okay, how do you do it? By collecting information of good and bad. So you avoid the bad and you go to the good. For us as human beings, we know where food is, we know where danger is. So we avoid danger, then we need to go to the food. So this is like memory is very important in intelligence. And finally, to go there or not to go there, we need to develop skills and knowledge. Okay, so there are these three steps: the why, then the memory, and to actually like to function, to do things. So these are the three elements of any intelligence. And the third one is what we always say, like whenever we talk about intelligence, it's all about solving problems. So that's the third action. Yeah. So someone has to, like, we need to solve problems so that we can avoid bad things or we can get good. So, and anything that can do this, we can call it an intelligent entity. And this is the actual definition of what intelligence is. So, just to take you through it, these are the three things you see there. So there is like accumulation of generalized learning, meaning you go around your environment and you collect as much information as possible. And then you connect these informations together so that you can come up with a perfect reason to do something or not to do something. And finally, by doing that, you solve a specific problem. You avoid danger or you get something you want out of it. And this is, we are actually very much bringing it down to the rudimentary definition, because every other definition of intelligence would fit in this basic definition. Okay, so now when it comes to artificial intelligence, we're always like, okay, then you learn as you go, right? Like you accumulate memory. So now we actually come to another term that's very important in the understanding of artificial intelligence, because we're always saying, okay, machines or like computers that learn. So what is learning as the second question now? So how would you define learning?
Is it the process of acquiring intelligence?
Okay, the process of acquiring intelligence. Okay. So one thing that like needs to be cleared as intelligence is a capability. It's not something you acquire or not acquire. It's just a capability, meaning you already have it or not have it. So when we say like human beings are intelligent, we are capable of learning. So it's a capability of learning. So like it's a kind of like it goes the other way around. But then learning is a process. It's actually a process. Or are we like you raised your head?
Yeah, just to add on what Nikita said, it's the capability and also the ability to retain the knowledge.
So to memorize it, like to kind of capture it and put it there. Okay. Any other like reflections of what learning is? Like usually whenever we have these conversations, I would recommend everyone to actually think of themselves, like to go inside and say, how do I learn? Because like if you remember, like when we were kids, we never knew how to count the alphabets, but like eventually we did. Imagine like in the past 20, 30 years, we started from counting the alphabets into actually speaking fluently, writing fluently, to a point that now we write essays like and sophisticated proposals and like letters as well, right? So how does the learning? Can you like kind of go within and in the memory lane and see how learning actually happens within us?
I can often answer.
Please,
Typically, typically, learning often occurs when you watch somebody else complete an action,
watch. Okay.
and then you repeat, and you keep going
Then
until
you
you get
repeat.
the action correct.
Okay. That's a very interesting definition, right? Like we see, for example, if you remember when we were how we learned the alphabet, the teacher kept saying A and we say A back. She said A, we say A back. And through repetition, now we kind of get A. And if you think about it, that symbol and A was a man-made association. Like for all we know, it A could have looked like B, right? So someone actually invented that symbol, gave it the sound ah, and now that's what they told us. So like we see and we repeat, and the more we repeat, we kind of memorize it. So that's actually how learning happens, you know. And the reason why we need to understand this is how also like how Martians learn, or this is how we actually eventually started teaching Martians. Okay, so now this is what we call like in engineering term the DIKW model, and like I want you to actually memorize this, like see it, and whenever you see it in the future, also like try to like have an aha moment. So this is like we call it the DIKW model because it stands for the data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And this is how anything gets learned by any intelligent creature. Okay. So the first and by far the most important thing is data, meaning we need to have a way of collecting data, and this comes through our five senses. And if you've seen any machine that's actually claimed to be artificially intelligent, it has a means of collecting data. So for us as a human being, we see things, we smell things, we hear things, we taste things, and we sense or touch things, right? So these five senses, now even like at this moment, if you everyone kind of look at yourselves, you're listening to my voice, looking into the screen, you're sitting or like you're sitting on the bed or on a chair and you can feel the chair on your body, right? That's also like a sense that's coming in. And maybe the place you're sitting in, maybe Nikita, like if you are in a new place, that place might have a new order. Like that's not like something that's not you're used to. Okay, so that's the sense of smell. And if you have eaten recently or if you have not eaten recently, there is actually a sense of taste in your mouth as well. So these senses are the starting point of any learning process. And as in every second, a human being actually collects thousands and thousands of sensor data every single second. Okay. Now, what we do is we take all this data, but we don't process all of the data. So, what as an intelligent being, we only focus on the things that matter most. And this thing, like the part of the data that matters the most for us at this moment, because it helps us in our survival, is what we call an information. So, an information is the data we choose to keep. Okay, so for example, like in this moment, the sensor of the chair on your body, you're neglecting it. You don't want it because it actually doesn't matter for you.
What you're focusing on is my voice maybe, or the screen that you're watching, okay? So from all those thousands of data that you're actually receiving every second, you significantly choose a specific one that you seem deem fit, okay? So even like as you're watching your screen, you can notice that there is a space beyond the screen, right? You can, behind there might be a table, there is a chair there or over there. There are a lot of things in the room, right? But all your attention is on the screen, which means you intentionally chose to focus here, even though your eyes are collecting a lot of data at this specific moment, right? So this process of like removing most of the data and filtering it to the most important and significant element of the data is, we call it like information. Now, when we start to connect information and understand them, create our own versions of them, we call it knowledge. Okay, so for example, maybe like, let's say you're sitting like, and people next to you are talking about, oh, Dagmawi is sick, let's say. And at that moment, whenever you hear that people next to you are talking about Dagmawi being sick, now you were in a workshop, like you were in a discussion, we were in a discussion today with Dagmawi. Now there is someone, Dagmawi, that you already know, that's stored in your mind. And tomorrow when you hear people talking about Dagmawi being sick, you connect the two and you might say to them, which Dagmawi are you talking about? You see, like, so when you start to connect previous information with more information and create a pattern, we call it a pattern. This is very critical because that's what Martians also do. When they start to see repeatability like in an information, it becomes knowledge. Okay, so for example, we always say this: you read a lot of books about a lot of topics, and every time you read, let's say you're reading a romance book and you read about love, before today you have a lot of understanding of what love is, and every time you read more about love, you actually accumulate more information. And now this is where things get very interesting, because once people create knowledge, then we have a hard time differentiating knowledge and a better form of knowledge. And as we always like to say, like, this is where all of the humans' problem emanate from, because knowing something and what comes after it, for a human being to differentiate the two is very hard. And that next thing is what we call wisdom. So wisdom by definition is experienced knowledge. So when you experience the knowledge, it becomes wisdom, and wisdom is the last evolution of every learning process. Okay, so now you might read 1,000 books on love, you might write 100,000 lines of code, lines of the text about love, but being in love is completely different, right? Being in love, that's why we say like experiential knowledge is wisdom, and wisdom has nothing to do with knowledge. And if you look at the world, most of the problems that are actually happening are people who have knowledge about something but have never experienced it, claiming to have wisdom about it. That's why we say wisdom is only for a few. In Amharic, we have a saying, a drum, for those who see it, it's beautiful. When people see drums being beaten, it's very marvelous. But the moment the guy gives you the drums and tells you to hit it, you know how hard and complex hitting a drum is. So hitting the drum is actually, that's the wisdom. Whereas, knowing how to hit it, and like I kind of like being, I kind of getting it is knowledge. Okay, so the difference between knowledge and wisdom is, it's earlier on when Nikita, when you were giving me the definition for intelligence, you said skill and knowledge. So the skill part is where the experience happens. So you try it and you fall, you try it and you fall, you try it and you fall, and eventually you make it. And that's when the knowledge becomes a wisdom. And understanding this learning evolution is very important. And it's the moment when we understood this, that creating AI became very easy for us. Now, that's how if you always memorize this is how human beings learn, and this is how we teach machines also to learn. So what we do is we collect a bunch of data and we give it to them. We give it to these computers. So what they do is, like a human being, they take this collected data and they start organizing them. Okay, like as you can see, for example, now the organization happening by color and by shape. Do you see this? So they start to organize it, and this is what we call an algorithm or a pattern. They start to find pattern, and once they found the pattern, based on the pattern, you remember, like you see this, there is an empty part here, right? So the empty part, let me use annotation. I think that will be much better for everyone. So as you can see here, let me change the color. As you can see, like there was a collection of all sorts of data. So the first thing the machines would do is they create patterns. Okay, so as you can see, they create the structure, the orders around, but they found a gap here. As you can see, there is a gap here. Based on the previous pattern, now the machines start making predictions. Okay. Then after the prediction, that's when the recommendation happens. Okay. So now, whenever we talk about sustainability, like for example, how would AI be used for making the climate crisis, for solving climate crisis? One of the biggest beauty of AI is that they can do prediction. Meaning, if we give them the information we had until this moment with regard to the climate, they can actually say, and you might have heard, in the next 50 years or in the next 20 years, this will happen, this will not happen. And this is the most usually done by AIs. Or we can also say, okay, like what type of, we can actually give these machines this data, and then we can actually introduce our intervention. Like what would happen if we do this? And they would show us what would happen so that we can decide what to do and what not to do. So we call this simulation. So AIs not only help us in predicting the future, they would also help us in simulating the future, meaning we can, like, I don't know if you've heard of digital twins. So digital twins are perfect replica of real world scenarios where we can test to see how we should move on in the future. So these are actually very sophisticated AI formats that we'll be using to tackle climate crisis as well. So,
Dagam, I'm afraid I have to interrupt you here.
I think, yeah.
Wow. This is because this is a really perfect time to kind of take a pause. This has been really, really fascinating. I really, really loved the presentations and how you kind of walked me through, starting from the very basic. There's so many takeaway points, like basically from data to intelligence, knowledge, and how that's built up. That's a very beautiful way. So many beautiful touch points there. And just being mindful of time, because we have a 90-minute session. I'll be happy if you continue this on the next session.
Exactly.
But before we close today's session, we can just leave a few minutes for our audience to kind of reflect, ask any questions so that we can better continue for next session. I remember just picking up on what Renee was saying at some point. How do they do this, right? How does this ChatGPT work? How does it process this information? So I think answering this very key word, intelligence, being at the very center of it, studying the human mind. It's really beautiful. That's what's fascinating, because think about AlphaFold, the guy, the Google's project on protein building. It's the director himself. I think he's a neuroscientist by profession, because he was he basically spent his whole career studying the human brain and later developed an interest into how artificial intelligence works, right? So we don't need all of us to be data scientists or AI techie guys or like people who are coders. Well, it's good to have those understanding, but this is really about understanding how intelligence works and how we process information. So I'll stop here. So many fascinating things covered. I really enjoyed it, but let me hear from others as well before we close today's session.
Maybe we can propose that we do a round robin so each person can just kind of give their reflection on the session and then we can wrap up there.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Can I start? Yeah, I think the most interesting part of it was the analogy between, let's say, how an AI does what it does and how, let's say, people learn, but in particular children. Simply because in my experience, oftentimes, like children, what you teach them is what they will do, and they will not deviate from it. I think, most of us in here have grown up in a Christian culture where, the phrase is, train up a child in the way they should go, right? Or give me the child before he is 7, I'll show you the man. That whatever um, whatever data you give the AI model, it can only give you what you gave it. And so that was I think the best possible way to explain how the AI doesn't work. That's what I really enjoyed. So thank you very much.
Good night. I enjoyed the session thoroughly. One takeaway, in addition to what Dr. Brandon would have just said, but also the fact that AI exists in everyday life. And so sometimes we don't even think about it, that we're actually using and interfacing with it. And so I thought that was interesting, the various examples for using AI in everyday life.
I totally agree with Dr. Hannah, because every time you said a certain word, keyword Alexa, my Alexa went off in my room. So, oh gosh, it happened again. So it made me realize, oh, I use AI quite often.
Yeah, I would also agree that it's good to have the reminder of how we see AI in all the subtle parts of life that we've already come to expect, like recommendation systems. No, we wouldn't call it that, but that's exactly what Amazon does to us all the time, and those Google ads on the side. We think about ChatGPT and these other forms of AI that have really shaken things up, but we forget that it has been an integral part of our lives for actually quite some time now. And like those chat bots that we really hate when we want to talk to a human. Yeah, those infamous bots. So yeah, it's good to be reminded that it's been there for a while.
Maybe I don't know, like so like as a last point, I think we'll go like deeper like in the coming session, like so that I think like everyone is on the same page and we have a very foundational understanding of what AI says, like and that was like the whole point of like this session. And just to give you a very interesting analogy, like when I was telling you about the Watson AI that IBM developed. So what they did is like a human being. So they gave it a chase, chase the game chase. So they actually gave the machine. They said, okay, you're going to play chase now, and we call it like on like good outcomes and bad outcomes. So they told the machine, if your king can't move, it means you lose the game. So that's a bad outcome. And like, if the opponent's king can't move, that's a good outcome. Then they gave this two